everybody, Lawyer Autumn Whitboyd here. I'm so excited to be back with you today. This is our latest installment in our series on different kinds of businesses and what they might need legally. Today, if you are an online course creator, now you might also fall into one of the other buckets that we've been talking about, all kinds of different service providers, but a lot of you listen, I know, because you have created an online course and you want to make sure that it is protected legally. That is something our firm works on all the time. We work with Amy Porterfield, we work with Shilling Johnson, we work with a lot of other big name online course creators and helping them lock down their content. So you get to have the benefit of us seeing all of the things that go wrong. That, believe me, I'm not going to share any secrets today. I don't ever share things that should be kept confidential from my clients, but in a general sense, I'm going to share lots of lessons that they have learned the hard way and that we have helped them work through. And I'm going to share with you some proactive steps that you can take to make sure that you are not facing those same problems. So, oh my goodness, I did it again. Again, if you're watching this on video, you got to see, I managed to change the size of the little block that has my name on it on accident. All right, so are you ready to take your online course to new heights? I know, I've built my own course, that building out an online course is a labor of love. So you have to make sure that each and every one of those many moving pieces is coming together in just the right way. So you might not be prepared for what's next after you actually launch your course and start selling it. You might not have the answers for some of the questions that will come up when you start launching, marketing, and selling your online course. Here's a couple examples. Am I clearly communicating to my students things like what my refund policy is, whether or not they are allowed to copy or distribute, resell any of my course content, all those videos and worksheets and resources that you're providing? Do you have the right policies in place, the right documents, terms, conditions, policies on your website, disclaimers, affiliate disclosures, results disclaimers, all of these things? Do you have all of those parts and pieces in place to make sure you're protecting your content and letting your visitors know what's allowed, what's not, how you'll use any personal information that they might share with you? And when the time comes to hire someone to help you, this comes earlier for online course creators than most because there are so many moving parts that require expertise. How can you make sure that you are doing that the right way and that you actually own the rights to anything that they are creating for you? So let's start with what I see go wrong most often. So a big problem that a lot of course creator clients come to us with are defaults on payment plans. Now, if you might want to listen back, I had an episode with a company that actually works on chasing after students who have defaulted on payment plans. That company is called Gravy, and I interviewed the founder. So go back and listen. He had some great ideas. So check that out for sure. But the starting point when you are dealing with a default, you really need to kind of go back 5 steps and go back to the beginning of when you are first selling to that student, when you are first marketing and then taking them through the sign-up process for your course. You want to make sure that you're making clear what the payment plan terms are and that you've got the right things in your contract with them. That's called your terms of use, to make that clear. If, what happens if they default? What are the terms for their payment plan? How does that all work? That's going to give you a lot more ammunition if you do find yourself in a pickle with students defaulting. And I forgot to give my standard disclaimer, so I'll do it now. Everything in this episode, everything I've just said, everything I'm going to say is information only. It is not legal advice. So please take it just as information to get your wheels turning. It is not meant to actually replace talking with a lawyer and getting your individual questions answered. I also want to mention, before I go on to a couple other things that can go wrong with an online course business that we see often, if this is interesting to you, if your wheels are turning from hearing some of these things and you're like, I don't have a good plan in place for that, we have a special resource for you. Go to the show notes page, or you can click on it in the, if you're watching this on Facebook or YouTube, or if you're in a podcast player, you can just click right on the link. We have a free masterclass especially for course creators. It's called the Your Legal Course Workshop. And this is going to teach you, it's a much deeper dive than I'm going to have time to do in this podcast episode. And we're going to cover the 3 critical legal protections that your course is probably missing. And if you sign up and watch that masterclass, you're also going to get our 3-step guide to lock down your online course business. So you'll get a guide, you'll get the masterclass, you will be off to the races. You'll know exactly what you need. All right. Going back to what can go wrong in your online course, it kind of goes hand in hand with what I just talked about, defaults on your payment plans. We get a lot of issues with people making refund requests or chargebacks if you take credit card payments, which most of us do. We have seen this. I'm recording this in August of 2020, so we are in the COVID season, and these are weird times. We've got a lot of students whose financial situation may have changed, or maybe they are taking a break from their business. They had to go get a job, or maybe they've got a family member who's sick. I mean, there's all kinds of things that can come up. So we do see refund requests, chargebacks, people wanting to end their participation in a course early, maybe. This is another one where if you think about this at the beginning, before you're actually signing someone up for your course, you can be thoughtful and you can make sure that you're putting in language in your agreement for whatever your policy is, whether your policy is no refunds at all, or whether your policy is, we'll take it case by case. You want to make that clear. You want to have a way for people to contact you if you have questions. That is going to just help you handle those refund requests. And there are ways that you can create your terms that you have your students agree to where it will discourage refund requests. Even if you have a no refund policy, I guarantee you are going to get refund requests because things happen. Things change, people's situations change. So there's no way to eliminate this altogether. But if you have a good language in your terms of use that your students are agreeing to, that will help kind of put you on the right path to make that easier for everybody. Another thing we see, and I talked about this on 2 episodes ago on our episode for people who are managing online communities or memberships, is we see problems with, if you have an online community that goes with your course, maybe it's just a limited time one that's just active while the live course is going. Maybe it's running all the time if your course is on Evergreen. But if you have a private community, whether it's a Slack group, a Facebook group, a Mighty Network, any private forum on your own website, there is the possibility that people will behave badly, that they will offend other people, that they will bully other people, that they will not be kind. I feel like sometimes because it is almost like an anonymous, you're not face to face. People say things they would never say in person to each other, or sometimes they just violate your rules. Maybe you have rules against selling or rules against pitching or DMing, sending private messages to people trying to sell them things. You may have issues with students, either causing drama, breaking rules. So that's something else that you need to think about on the front end and make sure that that is covered in your agreement with your students so that it's not if, it's when these things do come up, you have a way to deal with them more easily. The last thing I want to mention, this is a good problem to have, is that oftentimes you will have your students either sending you feedback or posting feedback in your private community, saying how great your course is, or sharing what results they have achieved, or, if you do a course on let's say how to lose weight, maybe they're posting before and after pictures, or maybe they're sharing how many pounds they've lost. You have a course that, like my friend Jacques, who I interviewed last week, if you watched or listened, he sells a course on how to learn how to play piano in 21 days. So maybe people are sharing how awesome they, snippets of how they're playing piano better, or maybe even examples. This feedback is wonderful. And I think a lot of us know, if we have researched and looked into the best way to sell, one of the strongest ways to sell is social proof. So other people saying how great your program is. Testimonials are gold. So you want the ability to take that feedback, to take that customer testimonial and actually use it. So even if it was made in your private Facebook group, you want the ability to maybe turn it into a Facebook ad or use it on your sales page, or any other marketing materials you may have. You may want the ability to include that. Now, the trick there is you have to ask permission. You can't just do that. You can't share people's private feedback or use their picture or their name to market your business if you don't have their permission. You may have heard this is called the right of publicity. We all, as individuals, have the right to control the use of our image or the use of our name to promote other people's stuff. This is a state law right, so it's a little different in every state. But you don't want to violate that. You don't want to get in trouble and worse, you don't want someone to get mad at you because you've used their testimonial without them okaying it first. But you can put language around this, again, in your terms of use that your students agree to, where you give them a heads up on the front end that you're allowed to do this, you may do this, and they are basically agreeing on the front end that you can do that. So all of the things that I've just been talking about, all these problems that we see really frequently, can be dealt with on the front end with a little bit of prevention, an ounce of prevention, by putting in place a solid terms of use. Now, you will be delighted to hear that you don't have to write your own terms of use. We, of course, have a template for that on our online store at awbfirm.com. And we also have a bundle just for course creators. So again, the place to start, if you're interested in that, and you want to learn more about that, the bundle of templates we have kind of two versions of it. The first version, this is for like a newer course creator. So if you're really just getting started, you're feeling like, I don't have anything in place legally, I need a strong foundation, I want you to go watch the masterclass. That is going to get you on the right road, and you can learn about kind of our starter bundle. If you are further along in your course business, you are successful, you're profitable, maybe you have independent contractors on your teams, or you're working with affiliates, which I'll talk about in just a minute, you really need our more robust, full-featured bundle, and that is just on our main website and our contract store at awbfirm.com. So we have kind of two versions depending on where you are in your business for that. So the next issue that I see come up a lot with course creators, actually I had a call just earlier this week with one, and we were kind of doing a little mini audit of their website, and I found, this was someone who has a pretty substantial business, and their website was not legally compliant with all the rules and regulations around what has to be on it. So the first thing, the biggest thing, if you take nothing else away from this episode, I want you to go check your website and make sure that you have a privacy policy. This is required by law. It is not optional. Again, we have a template for this. I don't recommend that you try and put this together yourself because you're probably going to mess it up. And having a privacy policy that doesn't actually comply with the law is no better than not having one at all. So let's do this the right way. This is one of those things you can do one time and set it and forget it. You have to have a privacy policy. This just tells people what you're going to do if they submit their personal information. Let's say you have an email opt-in, or you let people sign up for a newsletter, or you have like a contact us form on your website. Maybe you have a wait list for your course, and so people can sign up by giving you their email address. All of that, now you're collecting their personal information. You have to have a privacy policy that just tells them, what are you going to do with it? So privacy policy required by law. We have to get compliant there. The other thing I often see missing, this is not required, but it's a good idea, is to have terms and conditions on your website. This is kind of a catch-all that is going to tell people how they can use your content. Actually, I was working with a client earlier this week who has a really popular kind of framework that she teaches. She has a very best-selling book, and she is getting approached right and left with people wanting to use her content to create their own course. And she is not okay with that. She owns all the rights in that awesome content that she's worked really hard to protect and create. So we've been working with her basically to deal with all these requests. One way that we're going to deal with them is making sure the terms and conditions on her website are very clear with how people can use her content and how they cannot use her content. So those terms and conditions are a great place to kind of put those rules and regulations for how people can interact with your website, how they can use any content that you may share there, any disclaimers that you have, any other, required legal notices. It's a great place to just kind of throw all of that. And if people have questions, that's a place that they know that they can check. All right, as your course business grows, or maybe even in your first course, I see course creators relying on other team members earlier than most because, if you are selling a course, you probably need visuals, you need graphics, you need help with sales copy, you may need help with an email funnel, you may need help with Facebook ads, you may need a videographer or a photographer. There's lots of moving parts. And so oftentimes, especially if you're still working a day job, or if you maybe have a service business and you're creating a course as a new offer, you have the resources to hire people to help you with this. It is absolutely critical that you are using a written agreement with any independent contractors that you are bringing into your business. Now, if you're hiring like a content agency or a copywriter that is very professional, they may have their own agreement that they send to you that they use with all their clients. That's great. Make sure you read it. and make sure that it, handles the relationship the way that you want it handled. But the one thing I want you to watch out for is to make sure that it has language that says who owns the rights in all of that content that you're creating. Basically, everything a course creator business or online course business, the central asset of that business, what that business owns and runs on and makes its money on, is content. So we've got to protect that content, and to protect it, you have to make sure that you actually own it. So absolutely critical that if you're working with contractors, either you own all of the content or you make sure that you have the rights to use it however you are planning to use it. I prefer for you to own it, but I know some contractors are not okay with that. But as long as you have the rights you need, that may be fine. But we want that in writing. Anytime you're transferring rights, copyrights back and forth, it has to be in writing. And the same thing if you are starting to work with affiliates to help you promote your course. Now I'm recording this, as I said, in August of 2020. September is a big launch season for a lot of online course creators. And so a lot of people are doing affiliate, launches and promotions where you're promoting someone else's course. You've got to use an affiliate agreement in that scenario, especially if you are the one paying other people affiliate commission. It will really protect your business as well as give them a lot of peace of mind to have a strong affiliate agreement in place so that everybody knows when are they getting paid, how much are they getting paid, what are their responsibilities, can they use your logo, your copy, your images, like all of that stuff. We want to think about, make sure we put it in writing with our affiliates. We want to work with team members. However that looks, we want to make sure that we do that the right way. All right, I've got 2 more things that I'm going to hit on for my course creator listeners and watchers. The next one is choosing a great name. So when you are creating a course, a lot of people like for the name to be kind of catchy or unique or interesting. There's also a trend of having very basic course names. Like our course here at the AWB firm is just called Your Legal Course because we wanted it to be really simple and you know exactly what you're getting. This is, we're helping you get your online course legal. So either way, whatever you decide, if you have a really snazzy name that's really catchy, or if you have just a very basic name that just says exactly what you're doing, I want you to make sure that you are not violating anyone else's rights in that name. I want you to make sure that it's clear and that you are the first one to use it, because in the United States, we have a race system with trademarks. So that means the first person or company to use a name, use a word or a slogan or a logo, the first person to use it in their business, they get all the rights. That's even if someone else registers it with the trademark office later, the first person to use it still has what we call priority. And so it's important, really, really important, if you're spending money and time and energy promoting your course, getting name recognition, you want to own that. You don't want someone else to come out of the woodwork after you have become very successful and popular and say, oh, I'm so sorry, I was using that name first. I was using that name 5 years ago, and so now you can't use it. You have to rebrand, and it's expensive and difficult, and nobody likes it. So I want you to set yourself up for success by making sure that you have a clear name that does not belong to anyone else. If you want more information about that, listen to episode 71 of the Legal Roadmap podcast. It goes into more details about searching, how to kind of evaluate what comes up if you're looking at other trademarks. Are they too similar or not? But I don't think you need to register your trademark right out of the gate unless you're, a very large business and you have the resources and you're going to get a lot of attention. In that case, if you're a very successful course creator, call me. we will help you register your trademark. But if you are just getting started, if this is your first course or if this is a new course and you're just kind of testing it out, I want you to do the search, make sure that you like it, make sure that your students like it, make sure it resonates, and that you're going to stick with it for a while, because it's expensive to register a trademark. You were talking several $1,000s if you work with a lawyer. The USPTO filing fees are a couple $100s. So even if you're not working with a lawyer, which I don't recommend, but a lot of people do it on their own, it's still an investment. It's still not inexpensive. So even if you're not ready to register the trademark, which I think is a good idea, I want you to make sure you choose a solid name so that later, if you do decide to register it, it's going to be clean and clear and you'll be set up for success that way. All right, the last thing that I want to touch on, and I see this a lot, is copycats. So we want to be able to protect your course content. You can do this a couple ways. Some of the easiest things, you can do this with your course name too, is just adding a notice. So for a course name, you can add the little TM symbol that tells people that you consider that that's a trademark. It doesn't have to be registered for you to use that symbol. You only use the R in a circle if it's registered. But you can use the TM for any of your trademarks. And then you can use the C in the circle for any of your copyrights, registered or not. That one doesn't matter. You can use that for everything. And by putting that notice on things, what you're doing is you're kind of planting your flag in the sand. You're telling people, I own this stuff. So this should be on your course worksheets. It should be on your slides if you're like doing a voiceover over PowerPoint. It should be in your marketing materials. You should have that little C in a circle with the year and your business name, and maybe something like all rights reserved or no use without my permission. Letting people know I own this, it's valuable, I am claiming the copyright, and you cannot just use it. So that's the first step, is that copyright notice will help you kind of let people know that it is not just a free-for-all out there. You also are going to want to include some language in your terms of use with your students around this. So letting them know how they can use it, how they're not allowed to use it. And you can even, what I love to do is kind of put some teeth in that terms of use. And we include what's called a liquidated damages clause. You may have heard of this. It just means if you violate this term, you are agreeing in advance, you're going to pay me this amount as damages. So if you do find that one of your students has copied your course, you can show that to them. You can say, you agreed that if you violated this term, if you used my materials without my permission, you agreed you were going to pay this amount. I usually put, $5,000 or $10,000, so it's not a small amount. This is a great way to protect your content a little bit more. And then ultimately, if you have a course that's successful and that you are going to keep running, you're going to keep selling it for a while, I highly recommend registering your copyrights with the U.S. Copyright Office. Now, we don't have the same race system that I just talked about with trademarks for our online courses, but what we do have is a requirement under U.S. law that if you want to file a lawsuit, you have to have a copyright registration. That's not true with trademarks. It's a little different with copyrights. You have to have that registration certificate. And so that means if you want to effectively, send cease and desist letters or file takedown notices, you have to have that certificate so that you're ready if you do have to actually file a lawsuit. You can make an effective threat that people will take seriously because they know, if I don't listen, she's ready to go to court. She's done all the steps. She's not gonna have to wait 9 months for the Copyright Office to handle the registration application, which is about how long it takes. So if you have a successful course, I highly, highly recommend registering the content, all your videos, all your worksheets, all those resources that you provide to your students to help them achieve their goals. I want you to consider registering that. All right, as I mentioned, I'm going to say it again because this is really an amazing resource that I want you to go check out. This is our free masterclass for course creators. Go to awbfirm.com/course. We'll have that link right in the podcast player where you're listening or underneath the YouTube video in Facebook. So you can just go there right away. This is our free masterclass for you, and we're calling it the Your Legal Course Workshop. It's the 3 critical legal protections that your course is probably missing. And you can also get our 3-step guide to lock down your online course business with even more valuable legal protection tips. So especially if you are like me and you've been listening to this episode in the car or while you're doing dishes or on a walk, go snag that because it's going to really set out all of the steps that you need to take to protect your online course. And you don't have to take notes on this episode. It's all right there. All right. I appreciate you guys listening. I hope you have an awesome next week, and I will be back soon. We do Facebook Live every Thursday around noon, so you can catch me there. And I hope you go check out that masterclass. See you soon.